G-Man Boxing. Do you know what I mean? Every single live he donates. I see him on other lives donating. He's got the bag on it.
Alright people, midweek report time. Bit late to the party with this one, but I'm getting out just before the end of the day anyway. So, where do we start? Let's start with a fight that a lot of people are the majority of people I've seen aren't particularly happy about it, but I've seen a lot of people kind of overreact on this. Maybe not overreact to the fight per se, but I seen a lot of people on Adeola Depot's YouTube video yesterday where he was talking about this fight, and he actually made a video today just discussing what some of the comments were said. And I commented on his original video, and where he said that this to him is an alright fight, he expects to be good, and I commented and I basically said I don't think it will be, but respect your opinion, and based on the first fight I don't think it will. And the reason why I don't think it will is the fact that this fight has happened before, and it wasn't particularly good first time around. Pulev won it handily. He jabbed and grabbed his way to a points decision. This isn't like, for starters, most fights that are rematches that were poor the first time, they very seldom tend to be any better the second time. And second of all, Chisora's faded, Pulev is faded. But what Pulev did in order to beat Chisora the first time, it's not like Pulev used foot speed, hand speed, had tremendous reflexes to beat Chisora. He didn't do anything. He just jabbed and grabbed his way to a decision, and he won it fairly comfortably. Although it was split, he won it fairly comfortably. So he knows what he needs to do to beat Chisora. So I don't see why he won't do that again. Hence why I think it won't be the most entertaining fight. But if it is, I'll be the first to say, well, Adi, you got that one right. But some of the comments he was getting, I was like, what the hell? Like, some people were really going in on him. And he made a video talking about how hard it is to do work with the zone as well as do YouTube. And I get that. I 100% get that. Like, obviously I'm in a position where I don't work with any promoter, never been paid by any promoter, never been contacted by any promoter that I know of. Unless I've had a few boxers message me and tell me, you're an idiot, we don't like you, but not promoters. But I understand where he's coming from, because I think it was the last September. It was during the Pan Olympics. Now, as you may know, I don't particularly like Gareth A. Davis. I think he's a very dislikable human being. But he was away, and Ade needed a host to help him out with his boxing show on TalkSport. So, wrote me in. Obviously, we done it over Zoom. I was absolutely delighted to do it. But we chatted before going on. Now, as it was, we just talked, me and him. We talked about boxing. We talked just boxing. But before we went on, he was saying that potentially we'll have Anthony Yarde on as a guest. And it kind of struck me then, oh. Now, I've always been quite complimentary of Anthony Yarde. I criticise him when I need to, but it's more so his coach, Tunde. Tunde is kind of how do you put him? He's not someone I particularly like to be around. He's done good teaching Anthony Yarde the basics, but not someone I particularly like. And I was just thinking of myself, because at this time I was thinking Yarde needed to leave him. And I don't think he hadn't fought Lyndon Artis at the time. And he just fought some cream puff. And I was just thinking, how do I get these questions out without upsetting the fighter? In the sense of, how do I basically say, I think you need to bin your trainer, and the guy you fought last time out was an absolute joke? How do I say that in a nice way without upsetting the fighter and without upsetting the network? And you can kind of see where I was like, that's hard. That is not easy. Personally, if I was ever in a situation where I was on a network or anything like that, I'd just do, if it was, say, 2 fights, say I was working with just like Queensbury, I'd never talk about a show on YouTube. I'd always just I'd do a prediction and a breakdown from an analysis point of view, but I'd never ever talk about it in terms of whether I think it's good or bad, because you're always going to ruffle a feather one way or the other. So that's what I got to say on that. And big up to Ade every single time. He pretty much has helped this channel get to where it is. I mean, I don't know where I'd be without him. I mean, I don't even think I had 100 subs, and he was so kind to help me out and get the ball rolling. So I owe him an absolute debt of gratitude. In terms of this fight, interestingly, I do think we're going to get a good undercard. I'll tell you why. Because this sashays into the next part of Midweek Report. It won't be this fight, by the way, just so you know. Conor Benn has been talking about the prospect of fighting Chris Eubank Jr. It will not be this fight. Not going to happen. But he was saying if they were to fight, he'd like it at a catch weight. He is expected to be out on the July 9th card, but an opponent has yet to be revealed. It was reported, this is from Boxing Scene, that Eddie Hearn spoke with Top Rank about having their former champion at 140 pounds, Jose Ramirez, move up, but obviously that hasn't happened. For Eubank and him ain't gonna fight. I mean, I'd be never say never in the sport of boxing, but I'd be pretty damn sure that fight ain't never gonna happen. Too much of a weight discrepancy. You know, Conor Benn is not the biggest welterweight in the world. That ain't gonna happen. But it's interesting. So Conor Benn, I would imagine he's not going to be headlining. If Chisora and Pulev has been announced, I'd imagine that would be the headline act. However, I might stick my neck out on the line and say I'm going to call this as Conor Benn's next opponent. I'll tell you why. For two reasons. Virgil Ortiz versus David Avanesian is now not happening, and Ortiz will now likely face Michael McKinson. Now, you may remember he was meant to fight McKinson back in March. Didn't happen. Ortiz, I think, had some serious issues with I think he was having muscle atrophy, I think is how you pronounce it. Something serious anyway. So that looks likely to happen instead. David Avanesian is free. Conor Benn needs an opponent. I'm going to say it. If I'm wrong, so be it. I think we're getting Benn Avanesian. And to be fair, lads, Pulev Chisora is what it is. But that, along with Benn Avanesian, that's not bad. In fact, that's not bad. That's quite good. That's quite good. I did see someone, and bless him, he said, I say bless, I think he commented on my video saying, I was too harsh on this card, or as in this fight. If Eddie Hearn can just secure Michael Hunter versus Hughie Fury for this undercard, it'll be better. And I was like, mate, like two different promoters, two different networks, never going to happen, and the rest. But we could likely be getting that. So I'm going to stick my neck out on the line and say that is what's going to happen. In terms of other news, bit of sad news, very sad news actually to report. South African boxer Samosa Bertelzi, I hope I'm saying that name right, has actually passed away in hospital. This was a South African fighter who fought there on Sunday. Sadly, he suffered a brain injury in the ring, in the fight. It was a very strange and bizarre video. He basically turned away from his opponent and started punching fresh air. The referee quite rightly stopped the fight. Tragically, he has passed away from the injuries suffered in the fight, and it's never nice when we see it. I always hate reporting on it, and I hate seeing it. It's something that's always going to be in the sport of boxing. No matter how safe you try and make it, it's always going to be that kind of sport. So my thoughts go out to his family, and may God rest his soul. Tragic. R.I.P. So, in other news, we want to talk about Naoya Inoue. So obviously we watched the card, we done the watch along for him versus Dereck yesterday, and to say that's how you win a rematch. I mean, he left no stone. He didn't. I mean, that was just destruction, absolute destruction by Naoya Inoue. Tremendous performance. Sad seeing that happen to Nonito Donaire. Really sad, but Naoya Inoue is, I mean, damn. How very rare you see anyone in the lower weights, and this is a guy who's carried the power through from light flyweight. This guy ain't getting beaten. And I put that little post on the community tab about Paul Butler jokingly, and mate, you see, Paul Butler, some people were saying I was maybe writing Paul Butler off. Paul Butler about 4 years ago fought Rodriguez. I think it's Emmanuel Rodriguez was his name. The guy you knew I blew out of the water in 2 rounds up in Scotland a couple of years ago. Paul Butler is not the hardest fighter to hit. He's not physically the most strongest. He's not a particularly big puncher. And look, he's done well to get to a certain level, but he's got a couple of actual common opponents with Naoya Inoue, and obviously he doesn't have the punching power of Naoya Inoue, but it just ain't looking good. So that's the fight Inoue wants next. I can't see how he wins that fight. Honestly, I really can't see how he wins that fight. I can't even see how he... I can't see how he wins that fight. I can't see how he gets through the first round with Naoya Inoue. Be very, very surprised if he gets through that first round. In terms of other news, the Lightweight Ring Magazine have updated their rankings. Let me know your thoughts on this. Now, I'm going to raise a few eyebrows with this. I was raising my eyebrow anyway. Devin Haney, number 1. Or, actually, sorry, he's the champion, so he's the king of the mountain. Perfectly fine. Kambosos in at number 1 following that loss. Lopez, even though he's moving up to 140 at number 2, again. He's moving up to 140, but ayo. Lomachenko only down at number 3. Now, personally, I would have him at number 1. Obviously, Haney is the champion, but I'd have Lomachenko number 1. Tank Davis down number 4. Okay. Ryan Garcia 5. Isaac Cruz 6. Jojo Diaz 7. Comey 8. Javier Fortuna 9. And William Zepeda 10. Now, I might not agree with the rankings of all the fighters, but damn. Lightweight is strong ass division. That's what that is. That is a strong ass division, is lightweight. I mean, look at them names. Loma, Lopez. I don't know why they have Lopez there. If he's got his next fight is penciled in for 140, but ayo, Kambosos, Haney, Davis, Garcia, Cruz. I mean, even the guys like Cruz, Zepeda, Fortuna, Comey. I don't really rate Jojo Diaz, to be honest. I can't see him pulling. He's really not a lightweight, but I can't see him pulling any upsets. But there's upsets with some of them guys in the top 10. I'm telling you now. So one of them guys in that top 10, the lower echelon to the top 10, they could pull something out of the bag. Make no mistake about that. They could. In terms of other news, a fight that I could not have cared any less for has now been rescheduled, and that fight is Jamal Charlo versus Selecki. Charlo has suffered a back injury. Card will be rescheduled. I could not care less for that fight. You know, I still think Jamal Charlo is a good fighter, but he's not pushed on from that Derevchenko win. His brother really has stolen the march on him. And I remember about 5 years ago when Charlo had just moved up to 160 and his brother was back down at 154. I'm telling you now, and I was like that at the time, everyone was like, Jamal is better. Jamal is better. But he's stagnated crazy at 160. Jamel has really come out of his... Was he ever in his brother's shadow? It was definitely assumed, or suspected anyway, that he was the better of the two back then, but he stagnated something crazy. In terms of other news, obviously, we have Dubois versus Trevor Bryan this coming Saturday. It is set to take place in the afternoon in the US. Will be held in late evening UK time, not in the early hours. Ring walk is to be confirmed. TBC. You know Frank Warren would have something in this because that's his best buddy. I mean, Frank Warren and TBC, like PB&J, they just go together. What would Warren be without to be confirmed, huh? But that's good. I was worried about that, thinking, geez, we'll have to stay up for that fight because it's going to be on in the wee hours. The problem is, right, I would love to, and I'd love to do a watch along for that fight. I really would, especially if Bryan comes in lighter, which I don't know, will he? Maybe, but if he's coming in lighter, I think it could be a good fight. I still think that Daniel Dubois wins, but it could be a better fight if he comes in lighter. If he comes in heavy, Dubois walks through this guy. I'd love to do a watch along. I enjoy doing the watch alongs, but Don King is living back in the 1990s. That's the best way to describe it. He's living back in the 1990s. What I mean by that is that he is known whenever he puts on a show, even if you're doing a review of the fight. And you know the way we do reviews on YouTube, a lot of us do, we might put a little picture of the fight as the thumbnail, but there's no footage, and it's advertised everywhere, there's no footage. He doesn't care. He's copyrighting you. And there's one thing to get a claim. Copyright claim is one thing. I've got copyright claims on the Fury White documentary. That's why it took so long to get it up, because a claim is nothing. A claim just means it might be limited in certain countries. For example, you might not be able to watch it in the UK, but you can watch it in every other country if it's claimed by, say, Sky Sports. A strike is where the video gets pulled and your channel is on the naughty list for, I think, 10 months. They're not good to get. You don't want them, and I sure as hell don't want them, or don't want one. So I don't know if there's any way I can get around that, but I'd love to do a watch along. If I can find a way to get around it, I will, but I don't want to give this channel a strike. It's as simple as that. As much as I'd love to do a watch along for that one, I don't want this channel to get a strike. So I'd be reluctant to do a watch along and to even do a post fight. Maybe a post fight live, potentially. Might get away with that. But in terms of an actual review, I mean, it's going to be touch and go. I probably will do a review and just take my chances. Maybe edit the thumbnail a bit, but yeah, that's Don King. 90 years old and still he won't even. If I do a review of Dubois versus Bryan, let's say it gets 4,000 or 5,000 views, you're talking what, 15 quid, give or take, maybe a bit more. Really striking that, really crazy. That is most of the news. There's not been much going on. Now I do see here that De La Hoya was saying he's ready to make a multi-million-dollar offer to Ryan Garcia, for Tank Davis, to fight Ryan Garcia. I am willing to make this fight available on DAZN and Showtime pay-per-view. Split it right down the middle and let's make this fight happen. You really think that's gonna happen? I mean, if you think about it, a lot of the Golden Boys have done very little. I mean, Ryan Garcia is doing little. Ortiz he's fighting McKenson more than likely, which is not great. Gilberto Ramirez hasn't pushed on. I mean, I think he's still mandatory for Dimitri Bivol, but there's no talk of that. Who else does he have? He's not got many. And we have obviously Munguia fighting at 168 against Jimmy Kelly this weekend. I mean, Golden Boy and their fighters, and all them fighters have potential. With Ryan Garcia, we know about him, but Munguia has potential pulling power. Ramirez has potential pulling power. Ortiz certainly does, and they're just being stagnated. I mean, like, Garcia is kind of like, I don't really know where he's going, but in terms of like Ramirez, I mean, like, there's potential with Ramirez, very much potential with Ortiz. You know, Garcia has his legion of Instagram followers. And I mentioned someone else, Munguia. I mean, Munguia's got a fan-friendly style, very fan-friendly. I mean, there's potential with him too, and it's just nothing. It's just nothing going on with Golden Boy at the minute. It just seems like it's just stagnating one after the other. We see, so I can't see that offer. Maybe that's just wishful thinking from De La Hoya that they're actually going to get Tank Davis in there to fight. I doubt it very much, but hey, all stranger things have happened. People, I will leave you with that for now. Let me know your thoughts. Hopefully we get the video before the end of the week. If not, we'll find a way around it. We'll see what we could do on Saturday with Dubois versus Bryan. For now, I'll leave you with that. I hope you enjoyed. Smash the like button if you could. Subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. Hope you enjoyed all this video. Hope I gave you something to think about. I'll talk to you people. Peace.